PypeServer Lyte version 1.2 is here. We've taken the valued feedback of customers and industry professionals and made some major upgrades to help you not just follow industry best practices, but also customize the software to fit your specific workflow. We've expanded our importers to include industry-leading technology platforms. We've improved our user interface by supplying tools to give you more control and visibility into your cut lists. And we've provided alternative workflows for better integration into automated saws. In this video, I'll quickly go over each of the updates and new features available in PypeServer Lyte, and later we'll demonstrate workflows to get the most out of PypeServer Lyte. So let's take a look. Now, PypeServer historically has made a great effort to integrate with all major CAD design software and fabrication platforms. Well, this is no different with PypeServer Lyte. We've expanded our file-based imports by integrating with such software as Evolve Mechanical, Trimble Siskiyou, and Victaulic Tools. If your VDC uses any of these software packages, PypeServer Lyte will be able to read their cut file exports. We've also included a PCF file importer and improved our CSV file importer. Each provides tools to create and manage mapping templates, which can then be used to expedite the import of data. Let's take a look at the CSV importer to demonstrate how the templates can be utilized. New in PypeServer Lyte 1.2 is the support of different unit types and different CSV types. You can now specify the units in your numeric length column and the separating character in the source CSV. European and Canadian customers may find that their CSVs are actually separated by semicolons, as the comma character is used as a decimal point in the numeric data fields. Now, whatever your region settings, PypeServer Lyte now supports it. Now, when you receive a new CSV file to be processed, your steps are as follows. First, you create a new template. We'll call it My New Template. I'll switch to that template. Next, we want to take a quick look at the CSV to get to know the data format. So I want to note that my column headers are in row number 1 and my lengths are in inches. Now it's important to close down this CSV so we don't cause any file errors. And now I'll mark my length units as inches. My header row is in 1. And now I can load that file using this button. Now that the file has been loaded, I can match up the columns with the properties in PypeServer Lyte. The most important properties are noted here at the top in bold. I'll save my template. Now I'll import that same file using that template. So this template setup is a one-time thing, and future spreadsheets that use the same format can just utilize the template with a single click. Now, getting away from file-based transfers, we've added API support for some of the major fabrication software platforms. Well, first, of course, we support cut plans from PypeServer Cloud. PypeServer Cloud is universally supported with all PypeServer products. You can upload cut data right from Autodesk Revit or Autodesk AutoCAD using PypeServer Connect and receive that data on either PypeServer Enterprise or PypeServer Lyte, like we see here. We'll be talking a lot more about PypeServer Cloud in future videos. We've recently added support for GTP Stratus. Our Stratus importer allows you to select which tool your installation represents, so you only receive cut lists specific to that device, and then it allows you to select the part status you'd like the item to change to on GTP Stratus after a successful cut. All you'll need to get started is an app key, which is generated from the Stratus interface. Our M Suite integration is similar. Log into M Suite using your credentials to get started. M Suite handles cut lists with stages, so we can select a stage we'd like to receive the cut lists for. M Suite also utilizes work shifts and work timers. PypeServer Lyte will be able to pick up on any existing work shifts to track work, or it will start a new shift if one hasn't previously been started. Now, all of these importers are provided at no additional cost than the monthly or annual PypeServer Lyte subscription. Now, on completion of cuts, each of the supported services allows cut status to be reported. Use the checkboxes found in the Settings menu to turn on status reporting. Moving on to the user interface. On first glance, the interface has a few additional buttons as well as controls you would expect. The Load Stock button in the upper left has been upgraded to support material lengths in both inches and millimeters. Regardless of the measurement standard you've chosen for the Lyte interface, you can now specify lengths in either unit as you're restocking. Optionally, you can enter heat numbers as you load new stock. In the piping industry, the heat number is readily available on the pipe. Other industries may want to use this data field to track manufacturers or any other data point that would help track down the origin of the loaded material. Again, it's optional, and I'll leave mine blank for now. Cut history has been updated as well. We've added search functionality in the upper right to help you find items from a previous cut list. The checkboxes along the left can be used to select individual rows and create a new cut plan out of those items. This is a quick way to recut individual items without having to load in a project's worth of cut items. Use the same checkboxes to select chunks of data for archiving or deleting. It's a good practice to keep this list to a manageable size and periodically archive the data. There are tools to recover the archive files as well in the same menu. As always, we can still export the cut history to a CSV, and in a PypeServer powered fabrication shop, you can use the Export to PypeServer button to send your completed cuts to PypeServer Enterprise for status handling. Now let's take a look at the settings menu for some more updates. Now, stock length and kerf can be managed independently here. Their units are not dependent upon each other and can be specified in any combination. Reverse stock nesting is a new option. This option will calculate the optimal nesting like you would expect, but then it reverses the cuts on the instance of the material. Now this is meant to position the shortest cuts first and the longest cuts last on a stock length, allowing for more surface area for clamping toward the end of the run. It's easier for the operator to cut this way and safer overall. There are two items I want to discuss in the display settings. We've added the ability to group rows by stock instance. And what this does is create a header in the table for each of the stock instances necessary to execute a job. We can then use that header information to tell us the stock lengths necessary to complete a cut list. And I also wanted to highlight this area where you can select a color theme for PypeServer Lyte. Now by default it'll be on the light color theme. I'll switch it to dark for a second. Now fabrication shops can be very bright, screens can have glare, or for whatever reason, we've added dark mode as a display option. It provides a little more contrast and it's overall easier on the eyes. I'll switch that back for now. Now with these changes, let's take a look at the main interface and see what we can do to view and manipulate our cut lists. Now here's the stock instance headers as we discussed, and if I scroll down, you can see that it gives a preview of the calculated nesting and then shows the full stock count needed to complete the cut list. Now that can be quite helpful. And we've also added a toolbar over here on the right hand side that provides tools for managing your cut list. Now notice when I turned on this menu, checkboxes appeared on the left hand side of my cut list. Now these checkboxes provide a way that we can select one or multiple rows to alter the nesting algorithm. So let's say there's a few items in my cut list that are top priority and maybe a few that can wait till the end. Use the checkboxes and the priority buttons to indicate the importance of each cut. Like I'll move these up in priority, or I'll move this one even higher in priority. Now if I note some items in here that can wait to the end, I can select them here and move them down in priority. Now it should be noted that this controls priority, not order. Our nesting algorithm will be run on the items, and while it considers the priority, it will always calculate the best way to cut with the least amount of material waste. Now you can always use the clear button on the right to reset the cut list's priority. Now also available in this menu is the option to mark items as cut. If the items end up in your cut list and they've already been cut, you can use this button to send them to cut history. This will also prompt to print labels for the previously cut items. And finally, for items that make their way into the cut list that don't belong, use the Remove button to permanently remove these items. Finishing out our UI improvements, we've added a way to view and print a summary of a cut list. This button next to the Cut Plans drop-down will display the selected cut plan in a browser where you can print or save from here. The last thing I'd like to talk about today is an alternative workflow for our RazorGage customers. RazorGage has an existing software package called AutoList, which is tightly coupled with some automated saw packages such as Scotchman saws. So we'd like to utilize the features of RazorGage AutoList while adding on some of the features of PypeServer Lyte, such as importing from multiple sources, reporting back status to multiple sources, label printing, and the cut history. So in short, you can use PypeServer Lyte importers to gather data for the AutoList software, and then on cut completion, use PypeServer Lyte to print the labels and handle the downstream part of the workflow. And here's what that looks like. Well, first, we'll want to take a look at the material positioner settings in PypeServer Lyte settings. Now, typically, you'd be in a remote serial setup right here with all these options, but for RazorGage AutoList, we're focused on data. So we'll switch over to RazorGage AutoList, and you'll want to browse out to the RazorGage AutoList database. That can typically be found on your C drive under Positioner Runtime Files, RGST, and RG Parts. We'll save the settings here, and we'll go over to the RazorGage software. If you're on the main screen of the RazorGage RGST software, just go to the AutoList screen. Now under Settings of AutoList, you'll want to make your way to Single Cut List mode. Now here we're going to change two settings. The first thing is we want to take a look at our synchronization file down here. Now note the path because this RazorGage connector comes with PypeServer Lyte, and you'll want to browse out to Program Files, PypeServer Lyte, and select the PypeServer RazorGage connector. Now if in the previous step you didn't find the RazorGage AutoList database, this screen here tells you the path to that. Now the last part we want to change here is the frequency of synchronization. I have it set now. We found the best results are if you sync after every single part is cut. So if you're in push mode, then it will be after every stock length is completed, or if you're in stop mode, it'll be after every individual cut. Now this is true for both PypeServer Lyte and RazorGage AutoList, that once configured, this should be the only time you have to adjust these settings. So I'll save my changes and return to the AutoList screen. Now we'll want to bring in a cut list into PypeServer Lyte that can demonstrate the full workflow of importing, label printing, and status reporting. So I'll click on Import and go to PypeServer Cloud. I have a cut list here called Small Diameter Mechanical I'll bring in. And now 35 parts have been brought in. Now PypeServer Lyte will automatically do the nesting for us, but we're not necessarily going to use the nesting in this case. We have cut plans here for 2-inch and 1.5-inch pipe. I'll send the cut plan for 2-inch over to the RazorGage. Now before I leave PypeServer Lyte, I want to check my settings to make sure that I'm reporting status back to PypeServer Cloud. And I also want to make sure that my print settings are turned on right here to print labels on the cuts. Okay, over to RazorGage AutoList. I'll bring up the ZPL printer as well. To bring in the data that was just sent from PypeServer Lyte, just the very first time you'll have to click on Sync Data. So I'm in backstop mode here. That means every time I click on an item, my RazorGage is going to move to that location, and then I can click on Part Cut. After the cut, RazorGage AutoList synchronizes with PypeServer Lyte, and the label automatically prints over here. Now I can do this for a number of them in a row. So we're communicating between applications, all the while reporting status back to PypeServer Cloud or whatever cloud service you pulled your parts in from, and we're printing labels. Now if I switch over to pusher mode, in pusher mode you'll want to definitely take advantage of the nesting options in RazorGage AutoList. So I'll load a 24-inch piece. Now in this case only one item fit on that piece of stock, so I'll move to it. Mark it as done. Call it done. Now the synchronization runs at the end this time, not with each individual cut. I'll do one more to show what it looks like with multiple cuts on the same piece of stock. So one more time. There are 2 items on this piece of stock. I'll move. I'll mark it as complete. Move to the next location. Mark it as complete. Now during synchronization we should see 2 labels appear on the left hand side. There's both of the labels that represented the items on that piece of stock. Now back in PypeServer Lyte, these items have been removed from the active cut plan. The status has been reported, the labels have been printed, and they've been moved to cut history. Now going forward, of course, we're going to continue to support the remote serial option for RazorGage and TigerSaw positioners. The RazorGage AutoList option under settings is just there as an alternative workflow for customers using automated saws. So that is PypeServer Lyte version 1.2. Now you can tell we're actively developing new features based on customer feedback, and we welcome any questions. Just reach out to support@pipeserver.com for more information. Thanks for watching.